Hello and welcome to RTD's English News Edition, brought to you live, and here are our major stories. The 30th African Union Summit, the head of state held talks with the Ethiopian Prime Minister. The Syrian National Dialogue Congress opens in Sochi, a new chance for peace. Thank you for joining us. The 30th Summit of the African Union closed its works this afternoon. Rwandan President Paul Kagame has officially succeeded Alpha Conde as the president of the Pan-African Organization. He inherits a dairy-reaching crisis to settle. Three crises are particularly attracting the attention of the African leaders. Monday, January 29 in Addis Ababa, they were highlighted yesterday by the chairman of the AU Commission, Mustafa Ki Mohamed, and forced the South Sudan. It shows senseless violence which the belligerents inflicts with untold cruelty. The time has come to impose sanctions on those who obstruct peace, said Chadian Mustafa Ki at the podium. Then Congo Kinshasa, the tensions and violence of recent days have highlighted the urgency of the implementing of New Year's Eve agreement with a view to held elections in December 2018, said the same Mustafa Ki Mohamed. And finally, in Mali, we must accelerate the implementation of the Algeria agreement in parallel with the mobilization of an approach of greater support for the international community for the joint G5 Sahel force, said the chairman of the Commission of the AU. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has also pleaded vigorously to ensure that all members of the UN Security Council, including Donald Trump's United States, gives G5 Sahel all the necessary financial means. Financial means will also be needed for the African Union, hence the project of a 0.2% tax on products imported by the African countries. Alpha Conde revealed yesterday that only 20 countries out of 55 had applied for the measurement. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Margele, took part yesterday in the various aspects of the work of the 30th Ordinary Summit of the Heads of State and Government of the African Union. The head of state on the sidelines of the work of the 30th Summit of the African Union has held the talks with the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Mr. Haile Mariam Desalegn. The relations of friendship and cooperation between the two countries and the two fraternal peoples were mentioned during this meeting. The discussions were then extended to the status of important notion of economic integration between the two nations. In this regard, the two leaders welcomed the efficient pace in which the two countries are complementing each other in almost all economic and commercial sectors. Logistic and transport, electricity, water are all key sectors in which the two countries have been able to establish a real interdependence. The commissioning of the Djibouti-Ethiopian power train is a perfect illustration of this march toward economic integration between the two countries. Tourism is the ultimate sector around which both countries want to endorse a win-win partnership, and about the travel agencies of both countries will quickly reach agreements to offer foreign tourists travel in both countries in the form of packages very attractive, combining the Ethiopian highlands on the one hand, discoveries of Lake Abo and the Lake South Final of the Sea and Sun of Djibouti on the other hand. The proximity between the two nations is such that they collaborate together around the vital concept of food security. More than just economic complementaries, Djibouti and Ethiopia will evolve to a community of destinies. In addition to bilateral relations, President Gale and the Prime Minister of Ethiopia discussed a number of other topics of mutual interest: the situation in Somalia, the state that prevails in South Sudan in the region, as well as was indeed discussed during this meeting. In the eyes of the leaders of the both countries, the peace and stability of the sub-region are important factors of the development of both countries. On the sidelines of this summit, the President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Margele, met with the Secretary General of the United Nations. During the meeting, the discussions were focused on the cooperation between the UN and the country. Then the head of state met with the Vice Foreign Minister of China. The meeting focused on the relations between the two countries, ways to strengthen them in issues of common interest. The Chinese Vice Minister during this meeting recalled that China and Djibouti have maintained a long-term friendship, and since the two countries entered into diplomatic relations 37 years ago, the two sides have always treated each other, sincerely helped each other, and achieved fruitful cooperation in various fields, said the Chinese leaders. Continuing with the meetings as well on the silence of this 30th Summit of the African Union, the head of state met with his Kenyan counterpart Uhuru Kenyatta. After meeting with the Kenyan president, the head of state met with his counterpart of South Sudan, Salva Kiir. During these meetings, the parties expressed their will to strengthen the bilateral relations between the two countries. And let's recall that a delegation composed in particular of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mohammed Ali Yusuf, and the Djiboutian ambassador in Addis Ababa, Mohammed Idris Farah Bani, took part in this meeting. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Mergele, then met with his Somali counterpart, Mohammed Abdullahi Farmacho. The one-on-one meeting between the two heads of state is the highlights of this summit. At this meeting, both parties expressed their desire to strengthen bilateral relations between the two countries. In always on the silence of this summit that took place in Addis Ababa, the head of state, Mr. Ismail Mergele, met with his Rwandan counterpart, Paul Kagame. The two heads of state during this meeting expressed their will to consolidate the bonds of friendship and cooperation and to strengthen the ties of friendship and cooperation between the two countries. The head of Djiboutian diplomacy, Mohammed Ali Yusuf, and the Djiboutian ambassador in Addis Ababa, Mohammed Idris Farah Bani, attended the meeting between the two heads of state. Djibouti's ambassador to Addis Ababa and to the African Union returned to the main points that marked in his interview the work of this 30th Summit of the African Union. This summit is held as usual in the Ethiopian capital Addis Ababa, and many topics were in the agenda, said the ambassador, such as security and the fight against extremism, immigration and unemployment, which mainly affects young people and forces them to go into exile, the fight against corruption, the internal conflicts or crises that occur in many countries including South Sudan, Somalia, Libya, in the Central African Republic, affects issues. Elections are also slow to take place in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Prime Minister Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed received in Audience on this Monday a delegation of the World Bank led by Director Resident in Cairo, Mr. Asad Alam. The visitor was accompanied by the resident representative of the World Bank in Djibouti, Mr. Atusek, the Minister of Economy and Finances, Ilyas Moussa Douali, the Prime Minister's advisor, Ali Silai, and the Director in charge of External Finance, Ali Mohammed Ali Gedile, participated in this meeting. The objective of the visit of the regional director for the countries Djibouti, Egypt and Yemen was to see concretely the different programs that are implemented in Djibouti thanks to the financial support of the World Bank. He also emphasized the need for national and international private sector participation, a full business and support for national development efforts. Also, he said his goal is to make Djibouti more prosperous, not depending entirely on the World Bank, and possible avenues for targeting promising growth sectors such as tourism and the transport sector were discussed to make economic activities attractive in the country. The Minister of Finance and Economy has held this morning a mini-government retreat on the theme of development opportunities in Djibouti, organized in collaboration with the World Bank. This meeting aimed to expose the various promising sectors of the Djiboutian economy to develop strategies to take into account. Experts from the World Bank presented presentations on key sectors that must play a key role in economic growth. And let's recall that the economic growth of the Republic of Djibouti was 7.6% according to the IMF, thanks to the external financing. The port and airport infrastructure sector has made it possible to ensure the development of port activities and to increase its revenue. In addition to the Minister of Finance, Yes Musudwale, the Minister of Energy, the Minister of Education, the Minister of Higher Education, the Minister of Labor, the Minister of Agriculture, the Minister of Women and the Family, the Secretary of State for Social Affairs, and the Minister in charge of Housing, the representative of the World Bank, and representing different departments took part in this meeting. In his speech for this occasion, the Minister of Finance said that thanks to its geostrategic position, Djibouti is at the crossroads of important maritime corridors for the transport of various goods, but especially of oil. Continuing with the national news, the Minister of Health, Dr. Jama Al-Mouki, has received this morning medical equipment for the 5 mandate polyclinics. The official ceremony of reception of this medical equipment took place in the compound of the Central Purchasing of Drugs and Essential Materials camp in the presence of the Regional Director based in Egypt, Mr. Asad Alam, and the representative of the World Bank resident in Djibouti, Mr. Atusek. This medical equipment and materials include hospital beds, dental chairs, X-ray units, and other equipment needed for these health facilities. In addition to the usual benefits of existing care in the community health centers, these 5 polyclinics of PK12, Parabalay, Hayablay, and Gala will integrate new specialized services of maternity, ENT, stomology, and a service of emergency that correspond to second-level minimum activities packages.
Polyclinics across the city, including 3 in Balbala. I would like to congratulate the Minister and his team for going through the process of purchasing this through a competitive bidding process, getting the best prices for Djibouti, and getting high quality equipment across various things for biochemistry, for radiology, for dental, for hospital, for laboratory work, and for hospital and patient care. Healthcare is an important priority for the support from the World Bank, and I know that this is an important priority for the government of Djibouti. It is essential to have a healthy population that can be a more productive population that can help develop a prosperous Djibouti. So with that, I'd like to congratulate all of you, especially the workers here who will be using this equipment and bringing it to the service of the people of Djibouti. Thank you very much.
For his part, the Minister of Health, Dr. Jamal Mokiye, thanked the World Bank, which is working tirelessly to improve the sanitary system of our country. The Minister said that with the advent of these polyclinics, the Djiboutian health system is entering a new phase that is towards a reconfiguration of the health pyramid for better accessibility in a wide range of specialized care offering that is close to the population. Developing and implementing the guidelines of the national policy on decentralization, it is under this theme that was held this morning a reflection on the communication around the decentralization on the occasion of the publication of its newsletter and its lexicon. The meeting was held in the Ministry's premises. It was chaired by the Minister Delegate for Decentralization, Muhammad Aramis. This is a panel newsletter of communication and outreach information from the department. It's timely to serve a first-line forum for reporting on departmental activities. This newsletter is also reliable and useful on the decentralization process. It aims to provide a forum for decentralization actors to share their experiences on the ground. The Minister of Delegate for Decentralization, Muhammad Aramis, wants to strengthen his department in charge of information and communication by setting clear objectives and granting him the means necessary for the implementation of this communication project. As part of the preparation for the parliamentary elections, the National Communication Commission has held a meeting with the Director General of the Radio Television of Djibouti. The purpose of this meeting was to better prepare for the mediatization of the national campaign of legislative elections scheduled for this year. Indeed, the National Commission of Communication and the General Director of the RTD have agreed to respect the voting standards in the mediatization of the country's electoral campaigns. So every list that takes part in the legislative elections will have a fair time to air their voting. After this meeting, the National Communication Commission visited the different studios of the RTD and was accompanied by the General Director of the RTD. Obituary, the Minister of Waqfs and Culture, and the management of the RTD sent their sincere condolences following the death of the late Abwan Ahmed Said Diriye, which occurred this Saturday in Hargeisa. The deceased was buried in Boroma yesterday. Artistic composer born in 1964 in Diridawa, the late Abwan Ahmed Said Diriye, also known as Afkudiye, has produced many artistic works and plays in Djibouti and in the region. He started his career in 1980s and he came to Djibouti in 1990, where he worked with different bands. The late Abwan Ahmed Said Diriye leaves behind him a large family including 4 women and 15 children. All pray the good God to welcome him in his eternal paradise. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And now moving on to the international news. Sochi is hosting a forum on a serious future, bringing together representatives of the country's various social strata. The Congress is expected to boost the peace process and kickstart efforts to draft a new constitution. The Syrian National Dialogue Congress is to start in the Russian research city of Sochi on Monday. The event is expected to last for 2 days, and the main negotiations taking place on Tuesday. The Congress is sponsored by Russia, Turkey and Iran, the leaders of the 3 countries having agreed to all Syrian Congress in November. The main goal of the meeting is to gather delegates from various political parties, internal and external opposition, ethnic and confessional groups at the negotiating table. Russian President Vladimir Putin said at the time. Over 1,500 delegates representing various groups of Syrian society have been invited to participate in the talks. The aim is to lay the foundation for a peaceful future for the war-torn country. The delegates are expected to begin work on a new constitution and discuss reconciliation in Syria. Thank you for joining us on RTD. This is it for this edition. Bye.